is Tuesday. It's the 8th of July. I'm Moon Gon-young. This is Arirang News live from Seoul. Our top stories today. Korea's nominee for Deputy Prime Minister for Economy and Finance Minister says drawing up a budget supplement may be relevant at this point, hinting at the possibility of a cut in this year's growth forecast. And Samsung Electronics says its second quarter operating income has declined to a two-year low at $7.1 billion, far below analysts' estimate of $8 billion. And Israel and the militant group Hamas seem set on a collision course with an escalation of cross-border clashes around the Gaza Strip. Now we'll have those stories and more, but first let us begin in Seoul's National Assembly. Korea's new finance minister-designate Choi Kyung-hwan has promised all-out efforts to boost domestic demand to lead the economy out of a low-growth trap. Now, he was speaking at the confirmation hearing today, where Choi said he wants to make it easier for home buyers to get mortgage loans from banks. First, here's our Myung-kil.
Finance Minister nominee Choi Kyung-hwan says his initial focus will be removing red tape and other restrictions that make it difficult for consumers to buy a home. In his parliamentary confirmation hearing Tuesday, Choi said one area he would attend to urgently is easing what he called outdated restrictions on housing loans. Choi, who will also be a deputy prime minister if he is confirmed, said the government is requiring banks to excessively limit housing loans as it has failed to change regulations written more than 10 years ago when there were worries about property market bubbles. Adopted during the housing market boom, the rules strictly restrict the size of a home loan that can be given to home buyers. But the nominee did not say how he would bring the nation's rapidly growing household debt problem under control. Critics say it will only get worse if loan restrictions are eased. Choi said the need to boost domestic demand has become more urgent as the April ferry disaster prompted many consumers to refrain from leisure activities, thereby slowing the recovery. The nominee also stressed the need to streamline regulations in order to encourage investment and development. He said he was opposed to tax hikes aimed at making up for a revenue shortfall, adding that revenue should be raised by boosting economic activities, not by raising taxes. In particular, Choi cautioned against raising corporate tax rates, as a hike could damage investment and the economic recovery. The nominee also said he did not think it was time yet for the government to plan a stimulatory supplementary budget. Myung-kil, Arirang News.
Now, shifting our focus, Samsung Electronics released its estimated operating profit for the second quarter on this Tuesday, and it's not looking good. Profits fell below the psychologically significant 8 trillion won mark for the first time in 2 years. What could be the cause and what's expected to come? Our Na Hyung-kyung may have some answers.
Industry insiders in Seoul are calling it an earnings shock. Samsung Electronics' second quarter earnings guidance stands at 7.2 trillion won, or just above $7 billion, falling 15% from the previous quarter and down a whopping 25% from the same period last year. The company attributed the lower-than-expected operating profit to a slowdown in the growth of the global smartphone market and a strong Korean currency.
Samsung had a hard time in high-end smartphone segment because Galaxy S5 was not sold well. Second, Samsung did not focus on mid- and low-end smartphone market because of price down pressure from Chinese smartphone competitors.
Experts add if Samsung fails to beat off competition from Apple and Chinese manufacturers such as Xiaomi and Lenovo by the end of the year, the results will take a toll on the Korean economy as well, given that Samsung last year took up nearly 50% of the combined net profit generated by all listed companies in Korea. Samsung says the not-so-pretty numbers are heartily related to the absence of its ill chairman Lee Gun-hee, but with the second quarter profit hitting a two-year low, investors are likely to put more pressure on the tech giant's management. Na Hyun-kyung, Arirang News.
Hundreds of drivers in Korea have launched a class action lawsuit against some of the country's biggest automakers. Now, this after the Korean government announced last month that 2 local automakers, including Hyundai Motor, and 4 foreign brands overstated the gas mileages of some of their vehicles. Here's our Hwang Ji-hye.
Consumers who bought cars with overstated gas mileage are taking some of Korea's biggest automakers to court. As of now, around 1,700 people have joined a class action lawsuit. The overwhelming majority are owners of Hyundai Motors' 2013 Santa Fe SUV, taking up almost 90% of claims. Drivers who own Sangyong Motors' 2013 Corando SUV and some imported cars have also joined the lawsuit. A lawyer working on behalf of the drivers says he expects the number of plaintiffs to rise and eventually top 3,000.
We believe automakers have a warranty responsibility since the vehicles have a flaw in a key factor that measures performance. And the land ministry has already verified that there is a problem with the vehicles.
The plaintiffs are seeking between $650 to $3,000 each in compensation. The damages they claim include factors like the extra money they've spent on gas and mental stress. But with the Land Ministry and Industry Ministry divided over the correct way of calculating fuel efficiency, pundits are expecting a fierce legal battle. Even if the plaintiffs win, it doesn't mean all of the 110,000 people who own the models in question will receive compensation. Only those who filed a claim will receive a payout. 황지혜, Arirang News.
The United States and China, meanwhile, will meet for 2 days of bilateral talks starting tomorrow in Beijing. Now, this is an annual meeting and it's aimed at boosting bilateral cooperation, but this year, the two global powers may have to focus on more contentious issue. Here's our Hwang Sang-hee with this report.
As U.S. Secretary John Kerry heads for Beijing for the annual U.S.-China Strategic and Economic Dialogue, Washington said Monday the two countries will address a handful of pressing bilateral and global issues.
Our two countries will exchange views and forge progress on global, regional, and bilateral challenges, including pressing issues related to Ukraine, Afghanistan, Iran, the denuclearization of the Korean Peninsula, and maritime disputes.
State Department spokesperson Jen Psaki called the two-day meeting an important component of U.S. efforts to bolster relations with China. But more contentious topics will likely outweigh talks on cooperation. One of the most important issues for Washington could be China's alleged cyber theft of U.S. corporate secrets. In May, the U.S. indicted 5 Chinese military officers for allegedly hacking into U.S. companies to steal their trade secrets. The two also remain far apart on North Korea's nuclear ambitions, with Beijing calling for a swift resumption of dialogue, while Washington seeks more pressure by China on the North. Japan's resurgent nationalism and China's push to expand its maritime control are other potential issues for dispute. While any breakthroughs are unlikely this week, experts say the efforts by the U.S. and China to continue discussions should be taken positively by neighboring countries like South Korea. But at the same time, they say Seoul must stay alert on whether the two global powers will use the issue of North Korea's nuclear program as a negotiating card at their bilateral talks. Hwang Sang-hee, Arirang News.
Well, today marks the 20th anniversary of former North Korean leader Kim Il-sung's death, and various commemorative events are being held in the North today. Accompanied by top military officials, current leader Kim Jong-un visited the Kumsusan Palace of the Sun earlier this morning and paid tribute to his grandfather as well as his father, Kim Jong-il. And it is with this symbolic anniversary that North Korea is trying to extract some much-needed cash from pro-Pyongyang Federation of Koreans living in Japan. Our Kim Min-ji reports.
North Korea's main national daily Nodong Shinmun has published a rare article praising a pro-Pyongyang Federation of Koreans living in Japan known as Jocheongmyeon. Titled The Legend of Love Engraved in the History of North Koreans in Japan, the article says late leader Kim Il-sung showed great interest in the planning and construction of the Mangyongbong, a vessel that was used to carry North Koreans and Federation officials to Pyongyang. It added that Kim said officials from the Federation were revolution comrades. The Korean Central News Agency also reported on Federation officials visiting the North to commemorate the 20th anniversary since the death of Kim Il-sung as its top story. The move comes a matter of days after Japan lifted some sanctions imposed on the North. Pyongyang seems to be laying the groundwork to get financial support from the Federation again, now the regulations on the transfer of money have been eased. Around $300,000 can be remitted to North Korea without prior approval from the Japanese government. However, there are voices of concern emanating out of the Federation. Japanese media reports say some businessmen within the Federation dread becoming the source of funding for North Korea. It seems their woes will deepen, though, as North Korea continues to cozy up with Japan. Kim Min-ji, Arirang News.
Well, the heat only seems to be rising along the Gaza Strip following the death of Israeli and Palestinian teenagers, and both sides are exchanging fire, escalating the already heightened tensions. Palestinian militants are threatening revenge after it claimed Israeli airstrikes killed at least 9 of their comrades, which would mark the highest death toll in a couple of years since a cross-border war in 2012. Hamas said 7 of its fighters were killed when a tunnel collapsed following a strike, and 2 others in a separate drone attack. Israel's military has carried out strikes against 15 Hamas targets this Sunday, and on Monday, it drew up a reserve 1,500 men strong for the first time since 2012, citing military preparedness. Hamas leaders have confirmed it bombarded Israel with some 40 rockets and mortar fire. Meanwhile, in an update to investigations on the Palestinian teens kidnapped and murder, Israeli police say 3 of the 6 Israeli suspects arrested have confessed to their crimes. Pope Francis has offered his deepest apologies to the people who suffered sexual abuse at the hands of Catholic priests. However, many say his apology comes too late and doesn't go far enough. Here's our Shin Se-min.
Pope Francis has won widespread praise for his humble personal style and his efforts to reform the Vatican bureaucracy, but his handling of the sex abuse issue has brought him some sharp criticism. He attempted to address it in a private morning mass on Monday with 6 adult victims from Ireland, Britain, and Germany who were sexually abused by Catholic clerks. During the meeting, Pope Francis pledged that any bishop who fails in his responsibility to protect minors will be held accountable and begged forgiveness from the victims.
It causes me distress and pain at the fact that some priests and bishops, by sexually abusing minors, violated their innocence and their own priestly vocation. It goes beyond just despicable actions. It is like a sacrilegious cult.
But this is the first such meeting in a 16-month-old pontificate, prompting some advocates for abuse victims to argue that the Vatican still has done too little to create or prevent an accountable system for sex abuse victims. And in contrast to his predecessors, Pope John Paul II and Benedict, who met with victims on several occasions, Pope Francis' first meeting was seen by critics as insensitive given his compassionate nature. However, the director of U.S. Victims Advocacy Group, Bishops Accountability, praised the pontiff for the meeting, saying it was a positive and a necessary step. Shin Se-min, Arirang News.
All of the day's important events close to home and around the world. Join Moon Gon-yong live from Seoul.
Mobile shopping market. For the dual use of the Korean name East Sea and Japanese name Sea of Japan in school textbooks in the state of Virginia. Well, the financial health of some Korean conglomerates that are already in debt is worsening. The average debt-to-equity ratio of Hanjin Transportation, Kumho Asiana, and Hyundai Group and 7 other conglomerates rose by nearly 20 percentage points last year to more than 260% in December. Now, Chaebol.com, it's a research firm following Korean conglomerates, said the debts of some shipping units that belong to Hanjin Transportation and Hyundai Group were more than 10 times higher than their equity. That's not to confuse Hyundai Group with Hyundai Motor Group. They are 2 very different entities. The construction units of some of the conglomerates were particularly in bad shape. Over in Brazil, criminals raided a Samsung Electronics factory and made off with more than $6.5 million worth of electronic equipment. Now, this number is an estimate put forth by Samsung. Local police say around 20 men armed with submachine guns burst into Samsung's factory in Campinas, Sao Paulo, late Monday night local time and loaded up several trucks with tablets, notebooks, and smartphones. Now, some employees were reportedly held hostage by the criminals, but nobody was hurt. Police think the robbery is an inside job because they managed to get inside so easily and they already knew their way around the factory. Now, Samsung says it's fully cooperating with the police and it will do its best to avoid something similar happening again. Meanwhile, on a brighter note, Korean tech giant LG Electronics has started selling its G-Watch smartwatch both on and offline, online at the Google Play Store and offline at stores in a number of countries worldwide. The first Android-powered smartwatch will be available in 27 countries, including the United States, Canada, France, and Italy. You'll have a choice between a black and white, and the watch boasts an always-on feature that allows the display lights to be activated at all times, which probably would make it easier for users to check the time. G-Watch is compatible with smartphones running on Android OS version 4.3 or higher and will retail for about $265 right here in Korea. Well, for the last couple of days, Korea was in the grips of an early summer heat wave with the mercury climbing up and up, even beyond 30 degrees Celsius. That's not too common here in Korea. And although Super Typhoon Noguri advancing towards the Korean peninsula will cool things down a bit, we are expecting scorching temperatures again later this week. But as our Polly reports, a source of relief from the stifling heat can be found in seasonal fruits.
Hot and humid conditions are running rampant through the streets of Seoul during the midday sun, with crowds scrambling to find sweet relief in the form of a freshly made fruit drink.
I don't have much appetite these days since it's so hot. That's why it feels great and refreshing to drink fruit juice.
These drinks are not only tasty, but in fact play a key role in replenishing your body during the summer season. Excessive sweating can leave people dehydrated and even lacking nutrients. Fortunately, doctors say a healthy serving of fruit juice can help you get back on your feet.
Fruits grown in the summer are sweet and filled with water. Eating these fruits can be very helpful in replenishing energy and fluids after you sweat.
Among the wide selection of garden choices, watermelons are said to be the best for beating the summer heat, followed by tomatoes, pineapples, and kiwis. Oranges, peaches, and mangoes are also seasonal favorites. Another helpful tip is to mix fruits in a salad or icy punch, as many of the flavors complement each other for delicious results.
Watermelon helps to cleanse your body of waste while grapes act to supply you with energy. It's recommended that you mix and eat these fruits in a fruit punch to restore your vitality during the fatiguing summer.
The capital region will be experiencing high temperatures through next week due to the delayed monsoon front. So in order to get through the scorching heat, try one of Mother Nature's sweetest gifts to refresh your body and mind. Paul Yi, Arirang News.
And now it's time for a glimpse of Korea's arts and culture scene. And for that, of course, we are joined live in the studio by our Im Yoon-hee. Now, she brings us a story of a talented musician who plays a rather different instrument. So let's find out. Good afternoon to you, Yoon-hee.
Good afternoon.
So my understanding is that this musician is a harmonica player, but something you don't see every day, especially with people of his generation, right?
Right, so he is a very young musician who is one of Korea's leading harmonicists, and so he is actually on the pioneering edge of this instrument in this nation. Take a look.
He's an award-winning musician. His instrument of choice, the harmonica. Park Jong-sung has come back after 2 years from the stage in his Run Again concert to take place later this week. In 2011, he caught the attention of harmonicists everywhere
when he won the All-Japan Harmonica Competition, one of the most prestigious harmonica competitions in the world. He was the first Korean to do so, and has since been leading the next generation of harmonica players.
You know, and after being the first Korean harmonica player to win that competition, I'm sure he's paved the way for his the younger generation and future harmonica players to run.
He's actually the first Korean to specialize in harmonica studies here in Korea, so a very unique musician and a very, a lot of people expect a lot from him in the future.
Right, we'll be seeing more of him, hopefully. Now, my understanding is that you have another item for us that is about Korea's ever-growing musical theater industry.
Right, so we have talked a few times about Korea's musical industry. That has really been growing globally as well as locally.
Right, and you mentioned that they're being exported to China and Japan and other countries as well, right?
Right, but the expansion of Korea's musical industry didn't really take place until the interest of musicals really peaked, and that was with the production of Broadway musicals here in Korea. Now, Korea's musical industry got a huge boost when people really got interested because of the production of Broadway musicals. And we've mentioned before that the audience was really well received when it came to successful Broadway musicals. And interestingly enough, along with not as successful Broadway musicals, and it seems that the key lies in the plot line of these musicals. Now, we have a couple musicals today that really don't lack in the dramatic factor when it comes to their story. Take a look.
Based on Charles Dickens' novel, A Tale of Two Cities made its award-winning run in Broadway, and shortly after appeared in Seoul, selling out shows and sweeping 9 different awards, including Best Foreign Musical. Set during the turbulent times of the French Revolution, the musical has death and deception, but in the end, love still prevails.
It's nice for the audience to hear a story about love up here in the beautiful Namsan Mountains, where love is in the air.
Separated at birth, it's a story of twin brothers who show nature versus nurture. They reunite, now coming from 2 completely different worlds. And after falling in love with the same girl, their lives take a turn for the worse. Even though it's a tragedy, there's still a sliver of hope through it all. It's a performance that's been shown over 10,000 times all over the world, and now it's available in Seoul.
You know, we've actually talked about this before, but another element that really makes Korean musicals strong is the K-pop star element, how they cast K-pop stars for leading roles, right?
Actually, with this musical as well, they actually cast some actors. So another, way to bring in the audience. And so with these 2 musicals, they actually cast Oh Jung-hyuk and Song Chang-hee, who are 2 very well-known actors here in Korea who have showed multi-talents as well as, on the screen as well as on the stage. And so they really are showing, a diversity in their abilities.
Right, Oh Jung-hyuk was actually a K-pop star as well, so I suppose that played a factor. What about A Tale of Two Cities? It's actually won many awards, right?
Right, so it's been very successful here with the audience, and it's actually shown for 3 years straight. They bring it back every year because it is so popular. And so actually with Blood Brothers as well, the other musical, they're bringing in the producer Glenn Walford, who is a very well-known producer on London's West End, and so that they have a lot of expectations with that musical as well. So both Broadway musicals that are going to do well in Korea.
Well, with the scorching heat, something that we can enjoy indoors, definitely a good thing. All right, Yoon-hee, thank you so much for today. We'll talk to you tomorrow.
See you then.
Good afternoon. As you can see right now, it's looking very gray with lots of clouds hovering over the nation, when we can also expect a few scattered showers throughout the day due to the influence of Typhoon Noguri. But as the typhoon gets closer to the Korean peninsula, moving in northeasterly direction, we can expect heavy rain with thunderstorm and hail for some regions, especially down in Jeju and over in southern coast. And along with this weather conditions where it feels like it's going to rain all day, and we are expecting some humid day with higher daytime temperatures compared to yesterday, even without the sun. Now going over to our temperature readings, Seoul will top out at 31 this afternoon. Meanwhile, the southern cities such as Gwangju and Busan will peak up to 28 and 26 degrees. And moving over to other regions, Jeju Island tops over to 28 as well, while Dokdo and Mangungang both tops into the mid-20s. Well, that's all for now. Michelle Park, and back to you, Kanyang.
Well, thank you, Michelle, for that. And that's just about all from me at this hour. I'm Moon Kanyang. Check back with us at 4 p.m. Korea time for Business Today.